comfy enough. Leg wraps, puttees, Winingas, Vikkelbender. What else do people call them? If you've got any more names for these things, let me know in the comments. Chris and all, Jimmy's here, and I'm wearing my largest stripy trousers today so that we can talk about leg wraps. Leg wraps are really popular with a lot of people. I love leg wraps. I think these things are great. And they're really, really popular with Viking age reenactors and late Roman reenactors. And that's what we're going to talk about. So we've got actual evidence for leg wraps. We've got loads of actual physical evidence for them. We've got bits of them. We've got bits of what held them up. We've got pictures of them. That means it's pretty easy to say what leg wraps in the Viking age actually look like. So let's start with the evidence. So the evidence is plentiful. We've got bits of leg wraps from Haithabu. We've got bits of leg wraps from London. I mean, fragments of the cloth. We've got fragments from York. We've got fragments from Dublin. We've got earlier pre-Viking age fragments as well, but I'm not going to mention those. And the ones in Haithabu are the ones that I think are really cool, because the ones in Haithabu, we've got one which is just like this one, single length of wool, which I think was woven to width, so it's woven specifically to this width. Right, it's not folded, it's not hemmed. But we've also got another one that was folded and hemmed to be this width, to be the right width for the leg wrap. So there seems to be a mixture here. A lot of Viking age reenactors say, oh well, they wove them to width if you're wearing them if you're wearing leg wraps that have been cut and hemmed, that's not right. Well, actually we have an archaeological find of a leg wrap that was hemmed, so they were doing that. One of them is also very interesting because it's made of two pieces of wool. So there's a piece of wool that stretches most of the length of the leg wrap, and then there's a split where there's another piece of wool of a different type. So these are herringbone. Got a nice herringbone weave to them, and I think the camera will focus on. There you go, you can see the herringbone shape. And the leg wrap that's in two pieces is part herringbone and part tabby weave. I think it's a 2-2 tabby. Someone will correct me. It's in Inga Hagg's book. I think I've got a link to it in the description here. So we've got all this evidence of leg wraps, and they are found, as far as we can tell, all over Viking Age Europe. So we've got pictures of them. We've got Carolingians wearing them. Some of these Carolingians seem like they're wearing foot wraps that go from the toe right the way up the calf, don't they? So they might have been doing that. It's a very practical thing to do, especially if you're riding a horse. It's good to stop you rubbing your calf against the side of the horse. So I'd imagine your inner thigh was probably the biggest problem. I'm not much of a horse rider, so I can't speak with any kind of authority on that. But I suppose it might have helped a little bit. Some people are going to walk past now, so I'm going to stop talking. I get embarrassed, I get bashful. I check my phone. I'd be very Viking and check my phone while these people walk past. They've gone. Okay, they've gone. Good. So we've got all these images of the Carolingians wearing them, and it's mostly fighting men that we see wearing them. So you see depictions of soldiers wearing them, you see depictions of cavalrymen wearing them. And one thing that you have to be really careful with when you're looking at especially Carolingian manuscripts, but also Saxon manuscripts as well, is a lot of them are poor copies of Byzantine and late Roman pictures. So people are always kind of trying to dig through Carolingian manuscripts and just recreate what they see in them without taking into account that there's a lot of nuance there, and that is basically a depiction of a Byzantine soldier from 100 years earlier, for instance, that they've just misrepresented and misunderstood. Like, this happened a lot. There's a lot of, we used to call it Chinese whispers. I'm not sure if you're supposed to call it that anymore. Telephone, maybe? Is that the name for it now? There's a lot of telephone, sort of Chinese whispers, we used to call it, going on with manuscripts in Europe, so do be careful. And again, like, I'm not a professor of manuscript studies, so I can't necessarily tell you everything you need to look out for, but, you know, just be careful. It's 1,000 years ago, guys. We're going to get stuff wrong. So apart from that, where else do we see it? Well, we do see Romans wearing them, and I believe they called them fasciae. Crurales? Fasciae? Crurales? I think that's what they called them. But we've got depictions of them in mosaics and in other art of Romans wearing them to keep their calves nice and cosy. And There is an idea that some people were wearing them without trousers, and people are like, well, why would you wear that? That seems daft, that seems crazy. Like, why would you be like thighs out, calves in? But if you're walking through like long grass, for example, and your thighs aren't going to get particularly cold, but you're going to be in grass that's almost up to your knees, you don't want to get bitten by the stuff in the grass. So having the leg wraps on might be just enough protection for that. They're pretty good. They're pretty practical things. We have depictions of them on the... I'm just stroking them because they feel so nice. I love wool. If you stroke your wool on a regular basis, let me know in the comments. I should be stopped. We've got the Bayer tapestry, has them on. The Bayer embroidery is what it should be called. Has leg wraps on them. A lot of Anglo-Saxon manuscripts people suggest have leg wraps. Things like this, the Adoration of the Magi, I don't think those are leg wraps. I think those are gartered stockings and hose. We know people were just gartering their hose. We know that people were wearing stockings, so knee-length socks, basically. And that's what I think this shows. It doesn't look like leg wraps to me. It looks more like gartered hose and stockings. But that's just my interpretation, again, of a 1,000-year-old image. People see different stuff depending on what they want to get out of it. So what do we know about them? We know that they were made of wool. We know that they could be woven to width, and sometimes at least seem to have been cut to width. We know that they were held up. How are they held up? How do you hold these things up? Well, I hold them up with garment hooks. There you go. It's a hook. 2 holes sewn onto the end of the leg wrap that has been just put into a point. More people coming. I'm going to check my phone again. So these things go by many names. Garment hooks, Winingas hooks, clasps. Some people call them clasps, but they're not really a clasp, they are just a hook. And they're used after the Viking Age as well for a variety of purposes. One of the reasons they're used in the Tudor period is to hold the back of your dress up, which is cool. Shut up. Thank you. We do have finds of these. We've got finds of them from Birka, which I am pronouncing correctly this time, so thank you for everyone who advised me on the pronunciation last time. Some of my wonderful Patreons, coffee donors and commenters told me how to pronounce Birka and not embarrass myself online in front of thousands of people, so thank you very much. We've also got... Will you shut your faces? I am trying to film. Dick Bird. Used to know a guy called Dick Bird. Where else have we got them from? We got them from Winchester. There's actually a lovely pair from Winchester, which I believe were gilt bronze. We've got... No, the gilt bronze is a belt set, I think from Haithabu. Yes, so there's a belt set from Haithabu that was found around the knee, which people think means that they were used to hold up Winingas. I think they could have probably been used to hold up stockings as well, or just to garter your hose. Again, we know all that was happening. We've got a statue of Charlemagne with gartered hose, so if he was doing it, it's good enough for you. The Winchester ones, we've got silver hooks, and how do we know that these were used to hold up Winingas? Well, they're found at the knee. They're found 2, 1 at each knee, and this is the Birka grave that has these 2 garment hooks at the knee, which it does suggest quite strongly that they were used to hold up leg wraps. So how do you do that? Do you just stick it through the leg wrap? Doesn't that make a little hole? Well, yeah, but it's quite loosely woven wool. It's got amazing stretch to it. That's not even on the bias, that's just straight of grain. And that's on the bias. There you go. Look at that. Lovely. So it doesn't really do much damage to them. I've worn these. I mean, I've put hooks through the actual fabric of these. I've made an eyelet on one. We do have evidence, again, I think from Birka. No, it's Haithabu. It's one of the Haithabu ones that has a metal eyelet with some linen still surviving, which is incredible find. That has been interpreted as a Winingas hook or a stocking hook, possibly, which was attached directly to a pair of linen brays. So the brays, the big long shorts that you wear, there is a theory that something covering the lower leg was just directly attached to these underpants, basically, via a metal eyelet, which is... I mean, I can see it. You do see a lot of pictures where something up the shin kind of goes like this, you know, like in this image. And if that is just directly attached to the brays, that makes a lot of sense. That's what that would look like if you were drawing somebody attaching a hook to an eyelet on the breeches, or on the brays. That's what it'd look like, you know? So it seems like there are lots of ways of doing this, not just take leg wrap, hook, leg wrap, I mean, you could garter them, you could attach a tape to the end of them like they were doing with puttees in the First World War. 20th century, I should say. What will happen then is your camera battery will die and you'll remember that you didn't bring a spare battery with you and you'll have to do all the rest of it on your phone. So, welcome to my mobile. It's at about crotch height. I do think these things are overrepresented. I think too many people are wearing leg wraps. We do see them. Sometimes we see everybody at a reenactment event. Every man at a reenactment event is wearing leg wraps, and I think that's overrepresentative of how often they were actually worn. I think they were primarily worn as basically a compression sock. If you're playing football, you might wear compression socks. I think that's what these are for. I think these are a practical garment if you're doing heavy work or you are carrying a heavy load on your back. If you're doing something that needs extra ankle support. But most of the time when we see pictures from the period, people aren't wearing them. And I think a lot of what we see as leg wraps are gartered hose and stockings. That's my interpretation of the material we've got. That's just me. That's me thinking from what I've seen that that's probably the case. So there you go. Please ignore my enormous trousers, by the way. They're not the best made. I will make a new pair and do a video on the process of making massive Viking baggy pants because I want a new pair because these are great, but they're not. I'm not proud of them. Let's say that. These are my first pair that I made a few years ago, and I'm not proud of them. I didn't make these leg wraps, by the way, but they were dyed this gorgeous green colour. Get the dirt off them. By my friend Carrie, who dyed them with Woad and Weld. So if you're wondering what Woad and Weld can do, turned a pair of grey, fairly dull grey leg wraps into this amazing, almost fluorescent green, this highlighter green colour. So there you go. Love my leg wraps. You should lug leg wraps. I lug leg wraps. Do you lug leg wraps? I lug leg wraps. I love my leg wraps. They're amazing things. They provide you with excellent ankle support. They are good for running in, and in training for my charity run next month, I've been wearing my leg wraps a lot while I've been running, so they're really good for that. If you're carrying a weight, they're good extra support. Did women wear them? We have reason to believe they did. Gale Owen-Crocker suggests that women can be seen with leg wraps poking out from underneath their dresses in her book on Anglo-Saxon women. Get away, crows are circling. Carrion birds smell the death upon me. So, yeah, if you're a woman and you've got cold legs or you're just in the mood to wear leg wraps, put on some leg wraps. Who's going to stop you? And why would you? Lithuanian women apparently wore them on their arms. I'm not sure why. If you can come up with a good idea why you'd wear these on your arms, maybe for, like, if you're pushing or pulling, right, you need some support for your wrists and for your forearms. Rowing boats, maybe, like hauling nets up. I don't know. But yeah, apparently Lithuanian women were wearing these as arm wraps, not leg wraps. They do seem to fall out of fashion by the end of the 11th century, so sort of by the 12th century, by 1100, you don't see as many of them. If you've got any cool later sources for leg wraps, then absolutely go for it. How do you put them on? Isn't it a faff? And I don't think it's a faff at all. I don't think it's a fuss putting these things on. I basically start under my foot, wrap it around my foot, then start at the ankle, like right at the bottom of the ankle, wrap them round with maybe an inch between each wrap visible, go up over the calf, over the bulge of my calf, but not to the tendons at the back of my knee because that's restrictive, and then just put it in place there. Easy as pie. If you want a more in-depth video on how to tie regulation puttees for the First World War, or another video that's excellent on leg wraps in the Viking Age, go and check out Mike Everest. His videos are excellent. He's a good mate of mine as well. So go check out Mikey's channel if you want some really good information on puttees. He's excellent. He is, you know, if there is an expert on puttees, it's Mike. So there you go. That's about it. In terms of the phrase of the week. So for the phrase of the week, this week, I'm going for a very simple one, a very easy one that everybody should know. And it is quite simply the thing that you need to be able to shout at a rugby match. So if you're at a rugby match and you have to shout something, you can shout, Cymru am byth. Cymru am byth. Wales forever. Wales forever. Go Wales. I was listening to a book, an audio book about Robert E. Howard that wrote Conan, the Conan the Barbarian stories, and he kept referring to them as the Cymri and the Celts. Crumb. We are not the Cymri, we are the Cymri. We are not Celts, we are Celts. I mean, we're not really Celts, but, you know, we're Britons, Brython. It's not Cymru, it's Cymri. See the Y, the Cymri. Yeah? Am, and then bith. You get the I sound that the Y sometimes makes. I know, we've got an irregular letter, it's so difficult compared to English. It's not, it's really not. How many types of sound can the letter C possibly make before you use another letter instead? I mean, come on, guys. Anyway, enough of me dumping on the English language, which is a beautiful tongue. Thank you so much, once again, for joining me. Diolch yn fawr iawn unwaith eto am ymuno. And until the next time, tan y tro nesa, hwyl am y tro. Bye for now. Maybe I'll do some, like, proper vlog-style filming like Bernadette Banner.